Let's get back to Australian politics. The Greens are pushing for Australia to follow the lead of comparable economies, it says, such as Canada and the UK, to explore shifting to a 4-day work week. The party has launched its election policy supporting the initiative, starting with trials under a new National Institute for the 4-day work week. Joining me now is Greens Senator Barbara Pocock. Thank you for your time. Where could this 4-day working week actually take hold, given what you're also saying is no one's worse off? Companies will be okay, pay will be the same, and yet you do 4 days.
Well, we see a range of trials already underway in Australia and certainly, as you said, in many other countries. There's a lot of research out there about what's going on. What we see are really very significant falls in some costs. For example, absenteeism really plummets. Retention of workers widens. The health benefits are there. We do see productivity holding in a whole lot of the places, and it's a very diverse set of industries where we see these trials underway, and a big impact on worker wellbeing. So some workers wanting to work more, retain their hours of work. Others, many, are very, very keen to have the opportunity to work less. So what we're saying is, let's establish a national institute that has a look at all of the evidence around this as more and more companies and workplaces do it. Let's evaluate it and learn the lessons. And let's look at whether we and how we flexibly do this. It'll be differently introduced in different kinds of workplaces. You know, Australia used to lead the world. We were the first country to have the 8-hour day in Australia in 1856 for the stonemasons. We're now well back in the pack. We haven't had a reduction in working hours since 1983 when we went to 38 hours. So we're saying lots of productivity changes and technology. Let's see the benefits shared more fairly. Somewhat benefits for workers in terms of working time.
How it works realistically, though, if it's anything front-facing, hospitality, you're a hairdresser, you're a journalist. I mean, my job right now, if you're not there, you're not doing the work. Is it going to be limited to workplaces, I suppose, where you can either stay a couple of extra hours or do more work in that allotted time and not just have to be there for a certain number of hours?
Well, what we're talking about is a reduction in working hours for the normal full-time working week. And in some workplaces, that may mean extra people on board. In other places, people are reorganising the way work is done. For example, in lots of the places that are adapting to shorter working hours, people are removing inefficient meetings that frustrate everybody, that their lives are better without, and trying to work out the most efficient way of doing their job. But yes, in front-facing roles, there possibly will be more workers required to maintain that continuing body of the presence that we need in health services and education. That's important. We're not saying that we'll stop having
that
school.
Mean? Sorry to jump in. I'm just trying to get a couple of questions in and limit on time, so apologies. But wouldn't that mean in that circumstance either a worker gets less money or the employer cops it and essentially makes less money? That in that situation of front-facing, one of those two things has to happen, right?
Well, only if productivity does not increase. Microsoft, for example, a very large company, 2,400 workers in Japan, introduced a 4-day week. Its productivity increased by 40%. So workers really enthusiastically responded, changed the way they worked, and the company benefited, and certainly the workers did. Their absenteeism rate really fell away. So it depends on the way it's introduced. Without increases in productivity or maintenance of the same level of productivity as exists at a 38-hour week, that's possible. But where we see it, we see very positive outcomes arise in the well-being of workers and their willingness to engage productively with their tasks.
Wouldn't it mean as well, if you're thinking small business, it's harder for them to make up that gap? I mean, if you've got 2 employees at a cafe or an accountancy firm with 3 employees, it's pretty hard to just say work 4 days and get the same element out of them. There's only so hard someone can work.
Well, interestingly, I mean, that is a very plausible belief, but what we see when we look at the evidence, and it's the evidence we want to gather in this initiative, that many of the people who are enthusiastically offering a 4-day week are small businesses, and they have very localised arrangements that they manage to work well together to achieve a reduction in working hours and the flexibility they need. We're not telling anyone how to run their business. We're suggesting there need to be a range of adaptable, flexible options here. But isn't it time, after 40 years without any payback in working time for Australian workers, we look at the last 10 years, profits have increased by 97%, wages by 50%. We want to see a fairer sharing of the effort. Workers in Australia are working very hard, many of them will tell you. And we are suggesting there needs to be a dividend for them in working time.
Okay. Barbara Pocock, got to leave it there. Thank you.